I'm embarking on a new chapter, Alara. Without you. The pronouncement sliced through the celebratory chatter at the Soundview Room, the panoramic Seattle restaurant where we'd gathered for our daughter Chloe's Young Innovator of the Year award dinner. Marcus, my husband of 28 years, let his words drop like ice into the warm ambience, his champagne flute still aloft, the intended toast to Chloe's triumph displaced by his bombshell. Cutlery clattered into sudden silence. Laughter died. 40 pairs of eyes ping-ponged between Marcus and me, bracing for the meltdown, the accusations, the tearful retreat. Instead, I offered a serene smile. Well, Marcus, that's commendably direct. My name is Ilara Vance. I'm 53 years old, and up until that precise moment, I had flawlessly portrayed the supportive spouse and dedicated mother. My own ambitions in cybersecurity were shelved to bolster Marcus through a string of volatile tech startups, 2 dramatic pivots in his career path, and numerous soul-searching sabbaticals. I'd nurtured our exceptional daughter, Chloe, who sat beside me, her award statuette gleaming beside her plate, her face a mask of stunned disbelief. From a discreet table near the sweeping city views, I noted Sonia Petrova, Marcus's significantly younger associate. She was seated with individuals I'd once called my closest friends. Friends who, it now seemed, were privy to Marcus's extracurricular activities, yet chose silence. The same Sonia who had sought my advice on navigating the tech industry, who had attended our holiday gatherings. With unhurried grace, I reached into my clutch and retrieved a crisp silver envelope. I laid it softly beside Marcus's artisan bread plate. "What's this?" he managed, his assured smirk beginning to fray. "Something to peruse at your leisure," I replied, my voice even and calm. I turned to Chloe, her vibrant complexion now ashen. I gently touched her arm. "I am incredibly proud of you, my brilliant girl. This evening is and always will be about your remarkable achievement." Then I rose, smoothed the lines of my silk dress, and addressed our bewildered guests. "Please, continue your dinner. I wish you all a wonderful evening." With that, I walked towards the exit, my posture erect, feeling the weight of 40 astonished stares on my back. The heavy glass door whispered shut behind me, muffling the eruption of frantic whispers. Outside, the cool Puget Sound breeze was a welcome embrace, a stark contrast to the stifling atmosphere I had just left. For the first time in what felt like an eternity, I could draw a full, unimpeded breath. The restaurant door burst open again. Marcus's voice, stripped of its earlier bravado, now sharp with panic, called out, "Ilara, what in God's name is this? What have you done?" I kept walking, a ghost of a smile playing on my lips. The silver envelope contained the initial salvo of my countermove, a strategy I'd been refining for months.
I'd always been the pragmatist in our marriage. While Marcus chased elusive venture capital and grand disruptive ideas, I provided the bedrock our family needed. I was the one who diligently funded Chloe's STEM education fund when Marcus sank a small fortune into a friend's ill-fated biotech venture. I was the one who took on extra freelance risk assessment projects when his impulsive decision to become a blockchain evangelist, a phase lasting all of 9 months, left our finances precarious. My own dream, launching a consultancy specializing in digital security for vulnerable individuals, remained perpetually deferred. After Chloe settled in her career, I'd tell myself, after Marcus's next big thing finally takes off. 3 months prior, I'd noticed anomalies in our shared investment portfolio, unusual liquidations, transfers to an unfamiliar digital wallet. With 2 decades of managing our household finances and my background as a risk analyst for a major tech firm before Chloe was born, these irregularities blazed like warning flares. I could have confronted Marcus then and there, but in nascent caution, a whisper of self-preservation stayed my hand. The emotional chasm between us had been widening for a year. This felt like a symptom of a deeper malaise. Instead, I initiated a discreet investigation. The reality was more galling than I'd anticipated. Marcus had been systematically siphoning assets into a private account for over 18 months. He'd been wining and dining Sonia at exclusive chef's tables, purchasing designer gifts, and viewing waterfront condos in Bellevue, all while lamenting to me about the need for austerity as we approached our golden years. Then came the archived cloud messages I found when Marcus carelessly left his tablet unlocked. Messages detailing their future, their escape. Messages outlining his plan to announce our separation the day after Chloe's award ceremony. His grand, magnanimous gesture of setting me free. What Marcus had either forgotten or never truly appreciated was my professional acumen. I understood digital footprints. I knew how to follow the money. Crucially, I recalled the prenuptial agreement we signed 28 years ago. Back then, my family had a modest tech inheritance, and Marcus, ironically, had pushed for the agreement to shield his future disruptive innovations. That agreement contained a stringent infidelity clause, a detail that was about to become his personal cataclysm. While Marcus was orchestrating his new life with Sonia, I was meticulously building my defense. I engaged Julian Hayes, a formidable divorce attorney. I documented every clandestine transfer. I gathered irrefutable proof of his affair. I had the divorce papers drawn up. I orchestrated my timing with precision, knowing Marcus would delay his announcement until after Chloe's big night, believing it showed consideration. What he hadn't factored in was me serving those papers via a process server the morning of the award dinner. With the filings still sealed by the court, not yet visible to him, Marcus had no idea I was always several moves ahead.
I didn't linger near the restaurant. I drove to our home, a contemporary craftsman in Laurelhurst we'd bought a decade ago. The house Marcus, according to his messages, had already mentally redecorated with Sonia. I parked in the driveway and entered the space that had witnessed our shared history. The art we'd collected, the grand piano that had been my grandmother's, the comfortable sofa where we'd once mapped out our future. It all looked the same, yet felt irrevocably altered. Upstairs, in the master suite, I opened the walk-in closet. Marcus's travel bags were neatly packed and tucked away, ready for his anticipated departure the next day. His predictability elicited a grim smile. He was always fastidious about his appearance, yet astonishingly negligent with matters of substance. My phone vibrated relentlessly. Messages from concerned friends at the dinner, from Chloe, even from Isabel, Marcus's sister, who had flown in from Portland for the event. I replied only to Chloe. "I'm fine, sweetheart. This is not your weight to bear. Cherish your award. We'll connect tonight. Love you." I'd shielded Chloe from the unfolding disaster for months, unwilling to cast a shadow over her senior year and award preparations. She'd be upset by my silence, but I trusted her pragmatism, a trait inherited from me, blended with her father's charm, to eventually understand. 3 hours later, Marcus's car screeched into the driveway. The front door slammed open. "Ilara!" he bellowed, his voice ricocheting through the house. "Where are you?" I was in the study, calmly reviewing files on my laptop. I closed it as he stormed in, his face a mask of fury, the silver envelope crumpled in his fist. "What is the meaning of this?" he snarled, brandishing the papers. "You served me divorce papers today, of all days?" "I thought it synchronized rather well with your own timeline. You expressed a desire to start anew. I'm merely streamlining the process. You had no right." "I had every right," I interjected, my voice unwavering. "Just as you had every right to choose Sonia. We all make our choices, Marcus."
The prenup is ancient history, he retorted, with a flicker of smugness in his eyes. Any decent lawyer will infirm that. A small smile touched my lips. Actually, it isn't. Clause 17b explicitly states the infidelity provisions remain binding for the marriage's full duration. Your legal counsel should have highlighted that. Oh, wait, you didn't retain one, did you? The blood drained from his face as the implications dawned. The prenup, his safeguard for his imagined future riches, was now poised to strip him of nearly everything: the house, the shared investment portfolio, his portion of our retirement funds. His dramatic pronouncement at the restaurant had just become the most financially ruinous speech of his life.
"You can't do this to me," Marcus stammered, sinking onto an armchair. "We built this life, Marcus. You chose to dismantle it," I stated, albeit not quite in the manner you envisioned. His phone buzzed insistently. He glanced at it, then ignored it. Sonia, undoubtedly anxious. "You've always been calculating, Alara, but this is cruel," he tried, shifting tactics. "What about our history? 28 years mean nothing?" I regarded the man I had loved for nearly 3 decades, the man who had supported me through a serious illness early in our marriage, the man who had once surprised me with a trip to the San Juan Islands for our 15th anniversary. When had he become this stranger? Or was this his true self obscured by my own devotion? Our history meant everything, I answered honestly. That's why your betrayal was so profoundly wounding. His expression softened, sensing a possible concession. Then perhaps we can salvage this. I misstepped. People make errors. This wasn't an error, Marcus. This was a meticulously executed deception spanning over a year. You surreptitiously diverted our funds. You scouted properties with her. You intended to humiliate me publicly with your departure. His face hardened. You're overstating things. Am I? I picked up my phone, opened a voice memo app, and played his voice. After Chloe's award, I'll tell her. A public venue is better. She won't create a scene in front of everyone. Then Sonia's voice. And she's completely clueless about the separate account? Marcus again. Totally. Alara tests me implicitly. It's her Achilles heel. His face turned ashen. You recorded us? That's illegal. Not in Washington state with one-party consent, and certainly not when discussing plans to defraud your spouse within your own home. I didn't record your private moments with Sonia. I'm not gratuitous, merely thorough regarding your financial machinations. Marcus lurched to his feet, agitated. I need to make some calls. Of course, I said. Your attorney would be a good place to start. I'll be staying with Isabel tonight. Isabel's, he sputtered. My sister's. I nodded. She's rather disappointed in you, actually. She was the one who first saw you with Sonia at that tech conference last spring. She confronted you. You assured her it was a misunderstanding, that you'd end it. When she realized you hadn't, she came to me. This was another blow he hadn't foreseen. Isabel and I shared a bond, but Marcus never conceived his own sister would align against him. Everyone's turning on me, he muttered. The irony is palpable, isn't it? I collected my handbag and a small weekender I'd prepared. You have until tomorrow night to vacate the premises. After that, the security codes will be changed. As I moved to the door, Marcus called out, his voice laced with desperation. What about Chloe? Have you considered how this impacts her? I paused, a surge of anger finally piercing my composure. Don't you dare use our daughter as a deflection, Marcus. You certainly weren't prioritizing her feelings while plotting your new condo lifestyle with Sonia. His phone buzzed again. He looked at it, a groan escaping him. Problem? I inquired. Sonia. She's at the new apartment. She's already moved some of her things in. I couldn't suppress a slight smile. The apartment you co-signed the lease for last month? The one with both your names on it? Marcus nodded, bewildered. You might want to ring the building manager. That application was flagged due to credit inconsistencies on your part and never finalized. The agent called our landline to verify some details. I handled it. I walked out, leaving Marcus to grapple with the initial wave of repercussions. His impeccably planned new beginning was imploding with breathtaking speed. Isabel lived in a charming townhouse in Fremont, close to the university where she lectured in digital ethics. She met me with a fierce embrace. "I just got off the phone with Chloe," she said, drawing me inside. "Are you holding up?" "Better than I imagined," I confessed, following her to the kitchen where a bottle of Oregon Pinot Noir was already breathing. "I never thought Marcus would stoop to such a public display," Isabel said, pouring 2 generous glasses. "At the award dinner? In front of everyone? He's utterly lost it." "It was designed for maximum humiliation," I explained, accepting the wine. "A public severing, so any resistance from me would appear hysterical." Isabel's expression soured. "My brother always did have a penchant for the dramatic, but this is beyond." We settled in her cozy living area, surrounded by books and local art. Isabel had chosen a single life, dedicated to her academic career and passions. I'd often admired her autonomy.
"What was in that envelope that rattled him so thoroughly?" she asked. I detailed its contents. The divorce filing, the proof of his financial duplicity, and, most critically, the prenuptial agreement that would leave him with substantially less than he'd anticipated. "The prenup?" Isabel chuckled. "I recall when he insisted on it. Dad had just given him that seed money for his first startup, and he was paranoid about protecting his future empire." She laughed, a touch of bitterness in her tone. "The poetic justice is exquisite." My phone chimed. Chloe. I took a steadying breath before answering. "Mom?" she said immediately, her voice tight with emotion. "I'm heading to Aunt Isabel's." "Honey, you don't need to." "I'm already on my way," she interjected. "Dad is spinning a narrative that you've gone mad, that you've been scheming this for ages. He's saying awful things." Of course he was. Marcus invariably recast events to paint himself as the aggrieved party. Let him talk. The truth has a way of surfacing. 20 minutes later, Chloe arrived, still in her elegant awards outfit, her makeup streaked with tears. She crumpled into my embrace like she used to after a childhood scare. "Why didn't you tell me?" she whispered into my shoulder. "I didn't want to mar your final year, your award. You've worked so incredibly hard for this moment," I explained. She pulled back, dabbing her eyes. "Well, Dad certainly managed to ruin it anyway." We moved to Isabel's living room, where Chloe finally received the unvarnished account. The discovery of the affair, the financial deceptions, Marcus and Sonia's meticulously laid plans. "I knew something was off with Dad. He's been distant, always on his phone. But I never suspected this." "None of us ever want to envision such things in the people we love," Isabel said softly. My phone buzzed. A text from Julian Hayes, my attorney. The emergency motion had been granted. The accounts I'd flagged were frozen, pending the divorce settlement. Marcus now had restricted access to funds, enough for basic expenses, but insufficient for the luxury condo or other extravagances he'd planned with Sonia. I showed the message to Isabel and Chloe. "Good," Chloe said, her voice firm. "He deserves it." My daughter's staunch loyalty was a balm, though I wasn't naive. "He's still your father," I reminded her. "Your relationship with him is your own, separate from this." Chloe shook her head. "Maybe eventually, but right now I can't even bear to look at him. He hugged me this morning, told me how proud he was, all while intending to detonate our family just hours later." The doorbell chimed. Isabel went to answer, returning with a strained look. "It's Marcus, and he's brought company." I braced myself as Isabel ushered Marcus and Sonia into the room. Sonia looked profoundly uneasy, her gaze skittering around, avoiding eye contact. She was perhaps 35, not quite the ingenue, but a good 18 years my younger, with a sharp haircut and an air of ambition that hadn't yet weathered significant disappointment. Marcus, in stark contrast, radiated fury. His earlier desperation had congealed into belligerence. "Alara, you need to halt this madness. Unfreeze the accounts. We can address this like civilized adults." Chloe stood, positioning herself slightly in front of me.
Perhaps you should have considered being civilized before you announced to a room full of people that you were abandoning Mom. Marcus's eyes widened, as if just registering Chloe's presence. Chloe, this doesn't concern you. Doesn't concern me? She echoed, incredulous. You imploded our family on the night of my award? And it doesn't concern me? Sonia tentatively touched Marcus's arm. Greg, perhaps we should leave. He shrugged her off. No, I'm not going anywhere until Alara agrees to be rational. Isabel crossed her arms. My sister-in-law appears to be the only rational individual in this equation, Marcus. You're the architect of this fiasco.
I remained seated, an observer of the unfolding drama. For years, I'd been the designated peacemaker, smoothing conflicts, maintaining equilibrium. That role was utterly depleting, and I had finally relinquished it. The accounts will remain frozen until the preliminary hearing, I stated calmly. That's scheduled in 3 days. The judge will then determine the appropriate division of assets. 3 days? Marcus sputtered. What am I supposed to live on for 3 days? You have your personal account, I reminded him, the one you've been diligently funding for the past 18 months. That should prove adequate. Sonia's head snapped towards Marcus. You have a separate account? With how much? An intriguing new fissure was appearing. Clearly, Marcus hadn't been entirely transparent with Sonia either. Marcus ignored her. This is vindictive, Ilara. This isn't you. Perhaps you never truly knew me, just as I evidently never truly knew you. Chloe turned to Sonia. Did you know he was going to announce it like that at my celebration? Sonia, to her credit, looked chagrined. I believed he intended to speak with your mother privately. Today's announcement, it was unexpected. Marcus shot her a look of pure betrayal. The cracks in their united front were widening into chasms. I believe it's time for you both to depart, Isabel said, her tone unequivocal. You've distressed Chloe quite enough for one evening. Chloe, Marcus pleaded, you understand that relationships evolve, don't you? Sometimes people simply grow in different directions. My daughter's face hardened with a resolve I'd never witnessed. What I understand, Dad, is that you're a coward. You lacked the decency to afford Mom a private conversation. What I understand is that you were misappropriating family funds while I was juggling 2 part-time jobs to cover my grad school application fees because you claimed finances were tight. Marcus visibly paled. That's not how it was. It's precisely how it was. Chloe cut him off. Please leave. I can't bear the sight of you right now. The ensuing silence was heavy and absolute. Finally, Marcus turned to go, Sonia trailing in his wake. At the door, he paused, looking back at me. This isn't concluded, Ilara. I'll fight you on this. I met his gaze, my own steady. You are certainly welcome to try.
After their departure, Chloe sagged onto the sofa beside me, tears now flowing freely. I've never spoken to Dad like that in my life. I wrapped an arm around her. Sometimes advocating for what's right is inherently painful. Isabel returned with refilled wine glasses. To new horizons, she toasted, raising her glass. Indeed, I thought. This painful ending was merely the prologue to something entirely new. The preliminary hearing convened in a small, sterile courtroom on a drizzly Tuesday morning. I arrived with Julian, my attorney, while Marcus appeared with a young lawyer he'd hastily engaged, an associate from a firm specializing in corporate mergers, not contentious family law. Marcus's poor choice of counsel was another casualty of his rushed, reactive planning. The judge, a mature woman with astute eyes and zero tolerance for theatrics, scrutinized the prenuptial agreement. This document appears impeccably drafted, she commented, peering over her spectacles at Marcus's lawyer. Do you contest its validity? The young lawyer cleared his throat. Your Honor, We contend that the agreement has lapsed due to the passage of time. Section 17B clearly stipulates its terms remain active for the duration of the marriage plus any subsequent legal proceedings stemming from its dissolution, the judge read aloud. There is no specified expiration date. Marcus leaned in, whispering urgently to his lawyer, who looked increasingly flustered. Furthermore, the judge continued, the documented evidence of systematic fund diversions appears to be in direct violation of the financial disclosure clauses in Section 21. She wrestled through the submitted papers. I am ruling to uphold the freeze on all joint marital accounts pending comprehensive financial discovery. Mr. Thorne's personal account will remain accessible to him. The family residence will remain in Mrs. Vance's possession throughout these proceedings as stipulated by the prenuptial agreement's infidelity clause. Marcus's face turned a dangerous shade of crimson. This is preposterous, he muttered, audible enough for me to hear. The judge pinned him with a steely gaze. Mr. Thorne, I strongly advise you to reread the agreement you yourself signed. This court will reconvene in 30 days for the full hearing once discovery is complete. As we exited the courtroom, Marcus intercepted me in the corridor. Laura, please, we need to discuss this rationally. 28 years must count for something. It counted for everything, Marcus, until you decided it didn't. I walked away, leaving him standing alone in the echoing hallway, the full gravity of his decisions finally beginning to crush him.
News travels fast in tight-knit professional circles. Friends and acquaintances called frequently, some offering genuine support, others thinly veiled attempts to glean gossip. I maintained a position of dignified discretion regarding the specifics, merely stating Marcus and I are separating. These situations are unfortunately common. Meanwhile, Marcus's meticulously crafted public image, the innovative tech visionary, the devoted family man, was irrevocably shattering. The asset freeze meant he couldn't honor the financial commitments he'd made to Sonia. The Bellevue waterfront condo they'd viewed fell through. The lease on the luxury import he'd test-driven had to be abandoned. 2 weeks after the hearing, Isabel called, her voice brimming with wry amusement. Have you heard the latest? Sonia's decamped. Already? I wasn't entirely shocked, but the velocity was notable. Apparently, she discovered Marcus's thriving consultancy was more smoke and mirrors than actual profit. The substantial nest egg he'd alluded to was largely illusory. She confided in a mutual acquaintance that she hadn't signed on to subsidize a man with cash flow issues. I couldn't help but laugh. He always did possess a talent for crafting compelling fictions. In the midst of this, I was rebuilding. The personal financial reserves I had always maintained, distinct from our joint holdings, afforded me a level of autonomy Marcus hadn't anticipated. I leased a modest office suite in South Lake Union and began establishing the consultancy I'd envisioned for years, Vance Strategic Solutions. My initial clients were 2 women navigating complex employment contract renegotiations after sudden corporate restructurings. Word-of-mouth referrals soon followed. I specialized in empowering individuals, particularly women, to understand and secure their positions during significant professional and personal transitions. The work was profoundly rewarding, in a way my earlier corporate roles had never been. Chloe, who had accepted a prestigious fellowship at a research institute in Boston, called regularly. I'm so incredibly proud of you, Mom, she told me, after I described my expanding client base. You're providing a lifeline for people during their most vulnerable times. I'm simply offering the kind of support I wish had been more readily available to me earlier in my career, equipping people to navigate whatever challenges arise. Being valued for my expertise, rather than primarily for my domestic contributions, was a novel and deeply empowering sensation. The final divorce hearing coincided with what would have been our 29th wedding anniversary.
a strangely fitting coda to a nearly 30-decade chapter of my life. Marcus arrived looking gaunt and weary. I later learned his consultancy was floundering without my stabilizing influence and network. Sonia was a distant memory, reportedly now involved with a biotech investor from California. Most of our former mutual acquaintances had distanced themselves from him once the full extent of his deceit became known. The judge upheld the prenuptial agreement in its entirety. Marcus departed with his personal effects, his struggling business, and the depleted funds in his private account, which, after settling his legal fees, were barely sufficient to secure a small rental. I retained our home, my personal retirement accounts, and 70% of our joint investments, precisely as the infidelity clause within the prenup dictated. The justice was, in its own way, perfect. The very instrument Marcus had championed to protect his imagined future had become the agent of his financial reckoning. As we left the courtroom, Marcus approached me one final time. He said, his voice subdued, "I made a catastrophic error, Ilara. Is there any possibility?" I interrupted, my tone gentle but absolute. "No, that chapter is definitively closed." He replied, "I understand," and for the first time in a long while, I believed he truly did. He said, "I hope you find happiness, Ilara. You've earned it." It was perhaps the most honest sentiment he'd expressed to me in years. 6 months later, Vance Strategic Solutions was flourishing. I had relocated to a larger office space and brought on 2 junior analysts. I specialized in helping professionals, especially women, secure their financial and contractual standing during major career and life shifts. Chloe visited from Boston whenever her schedule allowed, visibly proud of the enterprise I had built. "You know what's truly ironic, Mom," she mused during one such visit. "If Dad had just been forthright from the outset, he probably could have negotiated a far more equitable settlement." "Sometimes people are blinded by their immediate desires, Cloche," I replied. The woman who had once been defined primarily as Marcus Thorne's wife and Chloe's mother had discovered a new, more authentic self. A mentor, an entrepreneur, an advocate. The silver envelope I had handed Marcus in that restaurant hadn't just contained legal documents. It had been the key unlocking a door to a future I hadn't dared to fully envision. Beyond it, I found not merely retribution, but a profound reinvention. In securing my financial independence, I had reclaimed something infinitely more precious, myself.